Good evening. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Sickle Cell Awareness Zoom presentation. This is truly an evening that we're so glad that you were able to share with us, and hope that each of you will learn great information that you can share with others. The topic is systemize the case of sickle cell patients. Um, I am the North Central District 20th Governor, and I'm a member of the Toledo Club of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club, as well as the second Vice President for Top Ladies of Distinction Toledo Chapter. This Zoom presentation is open to the public, and we hope that you will enjoy every bit of this presentation and have brought some friends with you or some loved ones to listen to what we have to say. As we start our program today, we would like everyone to please feel free to use the chat if they have any questions, and also send any questions to Linda Collins or Alexi Collins. Please mute your phone before presenting or speaking. So try not to eliminate any noises that may be in the background or interruptions or people talking through your background. Please take notes and feel free to pass your information on about sickle cell to other family members and friends to help us bring awareness to the communities in which we live. Thank you for joining this presentation for sickle cell disease. We will now have a welcome by Joy Goodner from the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club, Toledo Club.
Good evening. I am honored to be here today on behalf of the organization to welcome you all to this important event. We gather here as a united force committed to raising awareness about sickle cell disease and supporting those who are affected by it. It's a condition that doesn't discriminate. It affects individuals of all ages, races, and backgrounds, including many women in our communities. As a women's organization, we understand the power of unity and advocacy. We are deeply committed to supporting those who are battling sickle cell disease, ensuring they receive the care and support they deserve, and fighting for a future where this condition is better understood and more effectively treated. I encourage each and every one of you to actively engage, participate, and consider how you can contribute to the ongoing battle against sickle cell disease. Your presence here today shows your commitment to making a difference. Thank you for being a part of this event. Let's make today the beginning of meaningful change. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy Goodner. Next, we'll have a greeting from Patricia Poston from the Maumee Bay Club of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I am Patty Poston, and I'm representing Maumee Bay Club this evening. And to our Governor Denise, and to our presenter, Basharde, thank you all for putting this program together and giving us another opportunity to find out more about sickle cell disease. It's important that we are aware, whether we deal with the condition or someone in our family or just someone we know in our community. It's important to spread the word and to get the information out as we work in our community on a day-to-day basis. So again, thank you for bringing this forth, and to all the participants, prayerfully and hopefully you will participate and get something that you can share with others as we continue this worthwhile endeavor. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Patty. The purpose of this program, the members of the collaboration team would like you to know that there are many health issues that we face, and sickle cell is a major health problem. September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and what a better way to take time out for each of us to share health issues around sickle cell. Our collaborating clubs, members, and chapters are wearing maroon or red in honor of Sickle Cell Month for September. These organizations have collaborated with you to help you find ways to bring awareness on sickle cell in hopes that you can learn about the health issues that anyone with sickle cell faces and give you a direction of where to get help, questions that you might ask, the signs of sickle cell, and how to deal with sickle cell, and so much more. During this time, we hope that this Zoom presentation can help you bring awareness to others and reach out and touch the hearts of each one so that you can understand what someone else is going through each day as they live with this disease. The members of the collaboration team all share a common need, and this is to help others and to be of service to our communities. We consist of women from many Toledo organizations, and we're working hard to bring awareness to our community and the world in which we live. These organizations are the Adult and Youth Clubs of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club, Toledo and Maumee Bay Clubs, the Top Ladies of Distinction, Toledo Chapter, Pathways for Success Leadership Academy, Sickle Cell Scott Center for Observance, Treatment, and Transition, the YWCA of Northwest Ohio, the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Sorority Incorporated, Beta Gamma Chapter. Thank you for joining us. We will now have Linda Collins, who will introduce to you our special guest. Linda?
Good evening, everyone, and again, welcome. Today we have LaShanae Scott, who is the CEO, President of Scott Center of Observation, Treatment, and Transition. LaShanae received her bachelor's degree in social work and communications from Eastern Michigan University, her master's degree in mental health and chemical dependency, and graduate certificates in nonprofit management and grant writing. She is currently a student at the University of Kentucky Doctorate of Social Work Administration and Leadership program. She is an adjunct supporter of people with sickle cell disease because she is the mother of 2 warrior children. By educating people and families and providing them the ability to make knowledgeable choices, which maintain their mental health. Her mission for SCOTT is to provide educational opportunities in lowering infant mortality and aiding families in making the transition from pediatric to adult medical treatment. She is a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Xi Zeta Toledo Chapter, where she presently holds the position of second vice president. In addition, she fulfills the role of the Great Lakes Regional Adopt a School Coordinator, in addition to the several roles that she assumed. LaShanae serves as a member of the NASW Ohio Chapter, Board of Directors in Region 1, which also fulfills the role of a part-time lecturer, responsible for educating students, pursuing their BSW and MSW degree. We present to you Ms. LaShanae Scott. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Do I have the ability to share my screen so that I can pull up the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, let's see here. Sorry. Here. All right. I'm trying to pull this down. Okay, great. So thank you all for having me tonight. We're gonna focus on stigmatize the case of sickle cell patients. Let's see if we can go there. So just a few, the agenda will be basically we're gonna do like a pre-test. I want to kind of get everybody involved. I'll share my personal story. We'll talk about what sickle cell is, the core roles of a social worker or a teacher or any field that you're in. These can kind of coincide. We're going to do like a building exercise. So there's interactive scenarios. And then in those scenarios, we're going to address the barriers and stigmas of sickle cell patients. And then you'll be able to hear a couple videos, some testimonies from some patients that I know personally, just to kind of get an idea of what some of the misconceptions and stigmas are in sickle cell. And then just some recommendations on how to get involved. And then, of course, we'll kind of revisit the pre-test that we took before, just to make sure that everybody understands. And then some questions and comments if you have some. So that's going to be the gist of this talk tonight. So you should be able to gain understanding of what sickle cell disease is. You'll be able to acknowledge the importance of doctor-patient communication, or just a care coordinating team when dealing with sickle cell patients. And then also participants will be provided with necessary knowledge and skills and competency tools to better assist patients with sickle cell disease. Okay, so I can't see the chat, but maybe someone can monitor for me. So red blood cells normally live up to 120 days, but sickle cell only lives for about A, 60 to 70 days, B, 10 to 20 days, C, 100 to 110 days, or D, 30 to 40 days. Oh, I can see the chat now. So if you put them in the chat, or we can kind of go. Okay, I see D. Any other? I see D. A.
Wait a minute.
Anything different? Okay. A. Okay. So actually, the answer is B, 10 to 20 days. Individuals with sickle cell disease, their blood breaks down every 10 to 20 days, compared to individuals who do not, like it states here, 120 days is how long the blood cells live in people that do not have sickle cell disease. So,
All right, Alexi, you got it.
yeah, B. Okay, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. All right, so here's our second one. What is the purpose of hemoglobin? A, fights off infection. B, aids in digestion. C, prevents arthritis. D, carries oxygen throughout the body. So go ahead and type that in the chat. Okay, so D. D is correct. It carries oxygen throughout the body. So those who got, if you're watching, hemoglobin is another word for blood. Good answer. So we're going to move forward. Sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait are the same. A, true. B, false. Yes, so B is the answer, false. It is not the same, and we will discuss that further in the presentation. Okay, so only African Americans get sickle cell disease. A, true, or B, false? Right. The answer is B, false. We'll all these things will be addressed in the presentation. I just wanted to kind of just see where everybody's thought process is. So what shape are regular blood cells? A, sickle shape, B, rod shape, C, donut shape, or D, triangular shape?
Did mine go? Okay.
That was a trick question. So who said it? I'm gonna say who got it. Miss Joy has it. C, donut shape.
Oh,
The trick question. What shape are regular blood cells? So regular blood cells are like donuts, whereas sickle are sickle shape, so, or crescent moon shape. So yeah, that was a trick question.
All right, Joy.
So, okay. What was the first state to require newborn screening for sickle cell disease in 1975? Was it A, California, B, Georgia, C, New York, or D, Florida? Let's see what you guys think here. Joy is on the road. Yes, C, New York. You seen my presentation before, Miss Joy? Okay, so we're gonna go to the next one. All right. So, how do how do shaped red blood cells in sickle cell disease affect their health? A, block blood vessels. B, cause extreme pain episodes. C, severe anemia. D, organ damage. Or E, all the above. Yeah, everybody got that one right. Yep, E, all the above. We're almost at the end of these questions, guys. So ensuring access to water for sickle cell patients is extremely important. A, true, or B, false?
Let me say it again, ensuring access to water. Oh, God, let's see.
Yes, so A is the correct answer, true. But honestly, everybody should be drinking plenty of water. But yes, it's extremely important for sickle cell patients. And we'll get into that as well. And I want to say this might be the last one. So by 2050, the number of people with sickle cell disease is expected to increase globally by how much? A, 30%, B, 15%, C, 10%, or D, 25%? Just an educated guess. I don't really expect you guys to know. Okay, we got a couple C's. Yay, Miss Denise, you got it right. It's A, 30%. It's supposed to increase by 30%.
I went with the lowest one in hopes of that was it.
I wish that was the case, right? So we're gonna dive right into it now. So my personal story, my why, the reason why I do everything that it is that I do is my beautiful family. In 2015 and 2016, Emery and Evan were diagnosed with sickle cell disease. So we had to readjust the day to day. I shared the story so many times. I was always aware because my husband and I were both from Michigan. It wasn't mandated till June of '87 to test every baby. That was the year and month I was born. My husband was born 6 months prior to, so he was not tested due to it not being mandated. So when we had our second and our last son, I strategically asked these questions like, do you have sickle cell disease? I mean, sickle cell trait. I know that I have trait because I was always told if you had a mate that had trait, there was a possibility of having a child with disease, and I didn't want that. But these were the cards to me. So now what I've is made it my mission to inform people from our community to be more aware and just to educate. I mean, we hear about sickle cell trait, we hear about sickle cell disease, but do we really understand what that entails? And I think a lot of times we're just so misinformed on what it is. So that has driven me to my passion, which led me to a doctoral program focusing on basically creating a transition model for sickle cell patients, because there is no universal transition model or no standardized program for transitioning from pediatric to adult care, because patients were not living as long as they're living now. So I felt in this lifetime that this is what I needed to do to make sure that I, push forward and make sure that I'm educating our community. And this is how Scott came about. So here at Scott, as mentioned in the bio, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2022 that assists families and individuals with sickle cell disease transitioning from pediatric to adult care and minimize the infant mortality in communities of color, since we know Ohio is really huge on that. The community-based organization, we bridge the gap between medical professionals and patients by advocating on a medical, educational, and family level. Our purpose is to eliminate health disparities in underserved communities, to act as a liaison amongst the medical professionals, and to remove mental health stigmas, and to reduce the infant mortality in communities of color, and educate and empower our families to achieve better health outcomes. So that is our purpose. So what is sickle cell disease? It is an inherited red blood cell disorder affecting the hemoglobin, the ability to carry oxygen to the cells, which causes the cells to become rigid or half moon, as you can see in the pictures. I wonder if I can move this over. Yes, as you can see in the pictures, you have your normal and your normal blood cells and your sickle blood cells. And this is where the cause of extreme pain episodes, blockage in the blood vessels, and severe organ damage due to this, the cell sickling. Wonder why I didn't do it. Okay. So as we discussed, does sickle cell disease only impact African Americans? Absolutely not. 1 in 365 African American births, there's a child born with sickle cell disease. 1 in 16,300 Hispanic births. 1 in 25,800 Asian Pacific Island births. 1 in 41,600 non-Hispanic white births are all impacted by sickle cell disease. Now, although sickle cell disease does impact African ancestries at a higher rate, we have other Spanish-speaking regions in the Western Hemisphere, such as South America, the Caribbean, Central America, Saudi Arabia, India, and then we have Mediterranean countries such as Turkey, Greece, Italy, who are also impacted. So sickle cell disease is one of the most commonly inherited disorders worldwide. So I just wanted to make sure I gave you the facts. So as I stated to you before, I have 2 children that have sickle cell disease, but as you saw in that picture, there's 4 boys. So in each pregnancy, there is a 25% every time me and my husband, as you can see, this is supposed to be me and my husband and our youngest. Every time we have a child, there's a 25% chance of having a child with nothing. That would be regular. Then there's a 25% chance of having a child with sickle cell disease. And then there's a 50% chance of having a child with sickle cell trait. So I say that to say that that's in each pregnancy. Sometimes people think that it's just a one-time thing. It's in each pregnancy. So as my role as a social worker, or any social worker, we have to practice cultural meditation among individuals and communities. We're providing appropriate health education and information. And then we should be the care coordinating team to help them manage through this system that's so broken. We provide coaching and social support. We typically are advocating for individuals and communities. We're building individuals and community capacities to bridge that gap. Providing a lot of direct services. So sometimes their sickle cell is the least of their worries. A lot of these patients sometimes are homeless. So we're trying to find other resources to, at least mitigate those or eliminate those factors so that they can focus on their health. Conducting outreach. So I'm usually in the community speaking about sickle cell, such as now. And then participating in evaluation and research. So just getting there. I think the best thing is to ask the patient. Sometimes we think we have all the answers and we don't. So just asking those patients what it is that they need, or what are the needs, what are the barriers that they're experiencing. So just to kind of add to it, social workers have expert knowledge about navigating medical and social systems. So as an expert, it's our duty to, like I said, communicate with families between the healthcare team and guiding them to interact with one another. Because sometimes a lot of doctors come in and they speak a lot of jargon, and a lot of the patients don't understand that. So it's kind of like we're the social workers, CHWs, we're the person that really bridge that gap between the doctor and the patients. So addressing mental health needs, grief, psychosocial, spiritual aspects of well-being. And then being an expert in helping family cope with crisis and providing intensive counseling so like I said, there's a lot of things that they're dealing with outside of sickle cell. So there may be some mental health issues possibly too. So I'm not going to talk your ears off. So now we're going to engage. We're going to do a building exercise here. We can either put them in a chat, or you guys can come off mute. I'm not sure how many people are in here, but we can utilize the chat. So first scenario, before I read you're gonna think about the barriers first. We're gonna talk about the barriers of this scenario first. So Tasha, a 22-year-old female diagnosed with sickle cell disease, has had persistent pain without exhibiting any signs of a fever throughout the last week. Despite adhering to all advised measures, she needs medical attention at the emergency department. The patient presented herself at the emergency department around 11 p.m., informing the intake nurse and registration nurse of her prolonged and intense pain, attribute sickle cell disease, that she's been experiencing this over a week. The current time is now 1 a.m., and a patient that was suffering from influenza, who had previously been sent to triage area, has been assigned a hospital room. In the meantime, Tasha is still in the waiting room, waiting to be seen. So what are some of the barriers?
What was the last part you faded out?
Oh, I was saying, Tasha is still in the waiting room waiting. She hasn't been taken to triage, but the person who has influenza has a room now and all of these things. So what are some of the barriers? You can either come off mute or you can put them in the chat.
One is to me, like, I'm hoping this is what you're looking for. Like, they are not taking the pain serious because she might be a repeat person to come into the emergency room.
Absolutely. Yep. Anybody else see any other barriers possibly?
That they think her pain is not as intense as the other patient.
Yep.
I think education.
I'm sorry.
I think education. They're not educated as to what sickle cell anemia patients experience, so they write it off. So I think it's lack of education.
Yes. Anybody
And
else?
I was going to say her age, just the fact that because she's 22. And
yep. Yeah. Anybody else? So I kind of just want to dive into this. So for starters, sickle cell patients, there is a protocol that states the patient should be receiving fluids within the first 30 minutes of them arriving to the ER. So they should have an IV. They should go straight to a triage room. And then you ask them, later, okay, what are the symptoms? What are the, because we want to make sure that we get them the fluids prior to, because that would decrease their chances of a hospitalization or experiencing more pain, because a pain crisis can last anywhere between 7 to 14 days. So we want to make sure that we are definitely, minimizing their pain as much as possible. So all of the barriers that you guys stated are absolutely right. And then the fact
So,
that
Sade, quick question. So that means the nursing staff knows, or whoever's there, they know that when a sickle cell patient is presented, that these things should happen immediately. Is that correct?
they should know. However, there is a possibility that they might not know. We know that race plays a huge, first of all, systematic racism is very prevalent in the healthcare system, but we know that there's this misconception that Black or people of color can handle an extreme amount of pain, and having their own implicit biases on a situation, you're really hindering this person's life. So I think I typically go into a lot of hospitals and try to educate and let them know, okay, here's the recommendation that's coming from the NIH to say this is what you're supposed to be doing. These are the guidelines. But a lot of times, a lot of these emergency departments are not following those guidelines, unfortunately. And I don't know if that's because they're just not educated or they just don't want to.
Thank you.
That's the feeling I have. Okay, so another one here. We're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna see what the barriers are. So Ethan is 8 years old. He has sickle cell disease. He's missed a lot of school days as a result of his most recent hospital stay. He's in the 3rd grade and he reads at a 1st grade level. I'm sorry, I think my internet is unstable. Yes, he's in the 3rd grade, he reads at a 1st grade level. His mother hasn't disclosed his medical condition to the school. What are the barriers?
The school really needs to know that something really is wrong with him, and that was probably wrong for her not to tell the school a health issue like that.
Also, because if the school was aware of his sickle cell, and because he's missing so many days, there's alternatives that can be done to help him get his education that he needs.
Right. Anybody else? So I'm going to add to that. Mom just wasn't aware.
Mom did what?
Mom wasn't aware of what the resources are. Sometimes we can't assume that everybody has education or under.
So
I'm sorry.
Audrey?
Audrey, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
But yes, we can't, you know how they say common sense is common sense, but it's not always common. We can't assume that everybody has the same understanding of what the school should be privy of. So I don't think Mom understood, and these are real scenarios, let me say that. I don't think Mom understood that the level of importance of letting the school know. And this is where I think culturally, what happens in our house stays in our house. We know that's something that's done in our community at times. And that may be what this case may have been. However, the school, because they didn't know, they were just passing this child along, and now the child is in the 3rd grade, and we know the 3rd grade reading test is what gets you 4th grade. So now the child is behind because of his condition. So hearing that, what are some solutions that we could potentially help Ethan?
Well, I don't know if they got a school nurse or not, but also inform her of the what's wrong with a child. And also, like you said, educate up the rest of the teachers and the staff to let them know about sickle cell so that other students will not treat him differently. And it may help him, as far as school too.
And what about some 101 tutoring? He needs some help to get caught up and to give him the encouragement to keep going, that he's not going to be a statistic, and nobody's helping me, figure this out. And especially when he may have some days where he's really feeling bad, health-wise, really in pain, and, knowing that, he's behind already. So I think some one-on-one tutoring or something like that could also be a help to him.
Absolutely. Miss Denise and Miss Patty, those are all great. So I typically tell families 504 plans and IEPs. The 504 plan is to help with the accommodations when they're out of school, because of the drastic change in weather, all these things. Those are just like accommodations, but the IEP is that child that one-on-one attention. And if Ethan is missing school, they can grade him on the assignments that he's there so that he's not having to catch up all the way, because that's stress can cause a pain crisis as well. So to minimize that stress, we just want to make sure that Ethan is still receiving the work or a nice amount of work, but in, a span of time. Like it's not required for him to catch right back up immediately. And then sometimes they're able to make packets. So I know for me, when my kids are not feeling good, my children get packets and we work on it one day at a time if they're at home, and then whatever they don't finish, they take it back to school and they finish it at school. So just putting those things in place will potentially help this child get caught back up, and just the transparency around. And that's why I said we can't assume that everybody understands why it's so detrimental or why it's important. So good job on those. So we are going to move forward here. You guys are going to be able to hear. We just addressed that. So we're going to talk about a few stigmas and misconceptions of sickle cell patients. So the stigma, like I stated to you before, racism. So you have actual and perceived. Adult sickle cell patients, or I can't even say adult, once they hit the transition age, which is typically around 16, 17 years old, they are seen as drug seekers. And it's it's alarming because some patients share the same clinic as cancer patients. They are more empathetic to cancer patients because they have a bald head, and you show a little bit more compassion, whereas sickle cell patients, you can't tell by looking at them that they have, some type of ailment. But cancer patients are never asked, why do they need the pain pump? But sickle cell patients are, which is so crazy. So they are seen as liars, jaundice of the eyes, that stigma of them having something else, maybe, like hepatitis or something. And the reality is it's the breakdown of the red blood cells. As I stated to you earlier, their blood cells break down every 10 to 20 days. So their body is pumping way faster than a person, or breaking down much faster than a person that does not have sickle cell. Your pain is real because it's not fickle. So that comes with one of the misconception. Only sickle cell disease only affects people of color, as we just, as you just heard earlier. That is not true. They are perceived as being lazy. That is not true. We just know that they're fatigued. They're tired. I mean, if your blood was breaking down as quickly as theirs, you would be tired too. And then some cultures believe that prayer can heal everything. And I do believe in God and prayer and all those things, but I also think we have to come to reality that sometimes you do have to incorporate some of the medication that's coming out. And that's only because, like I said, patients are living much longer than they were in the 50s. We have patients that are well into their 80s now. versus in the 50s and 60s, patients weren't living past, 21. So to see how drastic this has changed due to medications and just advance in science, is very promising. Very, very promising. So in the medical field, I have had to correct medical professionals on this word. Webster Dictionary has the word sickler. It is not, it's very offensive to call a sickle cell patient a sickler. It's almost like calling someone Black the N-word. So I tell patients, speak up. If you feel offended, tell that nurse that they offended you. We have the right to, interview who's dealing with us, or we have a right to say that we don't want that person to service us because we don't feel. And if someone is constantly using terms that you do not agree with, then you have the right to say, I don't want your services. So I encourage that. So now you're going to hear from my friend Andre. Let me see, is it going to let us play it? Here we go. I don't know. Maybe. Give me a second here.
There is most definitely stigma and discrimination as it relates to sickle cell disease. I am a social science researcher, and one of my biggest research interests is to figure out how to eliminate or reduce the discrimination that we face as sickle cell patients due to race and lower socioeconomic status. There is a lot of access and racial disparities in care and sickle cell disease. And I believe that a lot of disparities that we suffer can be eliminated if we eliminate the racial injustice in the healthcare setting.
So here I'm that cystic fibrosis affects 30,000 Americans, and those people are not of color. They have a national registry. Funding exists, lots of funding exists. But sickle cell disease affects approximately, and I have to keep saying approximately because there is no national, there's little to no funding. And why do you think that is? Could somebody answer that?
Probably because they don't know about the disease itself. They need education on it.
Because it affects African American the most.
Yep. That's Miss Patty. That is absolutely that's the right answer. They know what sickle cell disease is, Miss Denise. The reality is because it's it doesn't impact white. If sickle cell disease impact people that were not of color, it'll be a lot of funding to sickle cell.
Okay. But
it impacts us. And we know that things start from the top. So like even in legislation, think about the things that get passed through legislation. Right? Those politicians, they only push those things if they impact their lives or their own backyard. I never really expect them to truly understand what it is that our community, is really enduring. Sickle cell disease has been around a long time. We can take it all the way back to King Tut. King Tut had sickle cell disease. We can get all the way back there. But the reality is, how is it there's no national registry? But there's one for 30,000 Americans. And I'm pretty sure we're well over 100,000 Americans with sickle cell disease, especially because the question I asked you, 2050, 30% is going to increase. So we know it's going to be over 100,000, right? So it's like, where do we go from here? But I had to share that with you guys because I believe in like being visual. You hear it, you get, and then you understand it. Person Azar, God rest his soul, he was a renowned sickle cell warrior and he was an artist. This is some of his work. You're gonna hear I'm gonna just like a small snippet. So he passed away in his 40s. He was actually working on a huge piece with with a drug company. And this is why I say it's very promising. Sickle cell is very promising. He's trying to pour money into it. And that's what makes me wonder what's coming down the pipeline, because now we have all of these, and I'm going to be very authentic. We have all these white people trying to invest money into sickle cell. Why is it? Because they're going to gain some profit from it. That's so I'm trying to keep her to the street so I can understand what's going on so that I can make sure that the nonprofits are in the forefront of whatever they have in their sleeves. But we're gonna hear just a little bit of what Hertz was speaking of with his diagnosis. If it plays, give me a second. I'm sorry, man.
Just take certain things into consideration that, the computer or the PC or whatever you use might have, a zoom in feature. If my eyes can't see something, I usually zoom in. Or, speech to text type of features. These type of things that are already out there for other cases like blindness or low vision or hearing as well, because hearing might affect it certain times with symptoms too. So there's a lot of things to consider, because basically with sickle cell, a person might look 100% fit, 100% normal, 2%, this person's not sick. That's because he's not ISIS or having a pain episode right now. But you don't know what they're, and it's, you don't really understand that this person is basically a disabled person, right? Has many handicaps, many inflicted injuries, internal organs that might not be working properly. So there's all these things to consider, that software, dealing with taxes, dealing with finances, probably the last thing they think about, because every day they're thinking about how to survive this disease that's always battle in their life.
So basically, he was speaking on his experience as being an artist and sometimes how he has to utilize some of these things to utilize some of these things that he needed to do the work. But I don't think people understand that sickle cell is every organ, everything in one's body. Like wherever there's blood flow, it's impacted by sickle cell. So as you heard him say, his eyes, his ear, like anywhere that there's blood flow, there's an issue with sickle cell patients. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with I'm trying to skip this slide, I'm sorry. With T-Blast, she's been pretty open about sickle cell disease, and I'm trying to see how long did I put this. We're gonna let you guys hear this. Okay, so we're not gonna 9 minutes, but I'm gonna let you guys hear a little bit here. Let's see. Hey, sorry guys, I'm trying to get us on ahead here. Just bear with me a moment.
Okay. Thanks for being here. You look fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks for talking about sickle cell. I was since I was 28 years old. So I was 28 years not understanding what I had, which is crazy.
I just want to remind everyone what sickle cell disease is. It's a blood disorder, and the red blood cells are normally smooth ovals. Those carry oxygen throughout your body. But when you have sickle cell, your cells are actually abnormally shaped, like a sickle with those jagged edges. And then what happens is sickle cells, they're stiff, they're sticky. And when they're stiff and sticky like that, they can clump together. Seems like no big deal, but what happens when they clump together, it blocks blood flow. When you don't get blood flow, you don't get oxygen to your limbs and other organs. That blocked blood flow can cause pain, severe organ damage. It can cause damage to the spleen, which of course, as you know, raises the risk for severe infections. And it's a cascading effect if you don't manage it properly.
So how does sickle cell happen? How do you get the trait, or how do you get the disease? When you have the disease, you have to inherit it, the gene from both parents. So you have your mom and your dad. My daughter has the trait though, so she doesn't have the disease, but this is Chase. Hi, Chase.
You can get like a mama.
And then the trait happens when you have one normal gene and one sickle cell gene. So what happens if you put two people with the trait together? What actually might happen for their children? The first thing is they could inherit the disease. The second thing that happened is they would inherit the trait, which usually doesn't have severe health consequences.
Right.
And then the third thing that can happen is they have neither. They don't have the trait or the disease. But here's the good news. In almost every state, almost every newborn is now tested for sickle cell disease. A lot of people think that only African Americans have sickle cell disease, but that's not true. Some other ethnic groups actually are affected with sickle cell disease as well. So this form of testing now gives us a chance to make sure whoever is affected is picked up right there in the hospital. But
So I just wanted to share that. So as you heard her say, she did not get diagnosed till she was 20, what did she say, 28? That was due to the newborn screening. So like I said, this, and then she doesn't have sickle cell SS, she has sickle cell thalassemia. So there are 4 common types of sickle cell, and she just happens to have the one that is usually unfortunately, even now it's still kind of a diagnosed at times because the blood is much more than sickle cell disease. So basically, just hearing her story, here it is, she has all this money and she's still impacted by sickle cell. There's no cure, there's no universal cure. She's still thriving and surviving with sickle cell. So I just wanted to kind of show that that small piece to you guys. So implementing support systems, I want to talk about that. So here in Ohio, specifically in the Toledo area, my husband and I, we rechartered the support group in 2019, which is Sickle Cell Awareness of Toledo. It was around way before us, but it had died off when a couple of the sickle cell patients, when they died. We wanted to bring that back, and we meet every other month. So that's every other month, the third Wednesday at Mott Library. I'm conducting research. So the last research I did was assessing post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety and depression in caregivers of sickle cell patients. I think we don't give enough credit to caregivers who are taking care of individuals who are dealing with chronic disease or any type of diagnosis, to be honest. It takes a village to really, making sure that person they're taking care of. We have protocol set at the University of Toledo because I have patients there. That's been set in place since 2019. I was stating to you earlier how we can help be successful even at the collegiate level. We're making sure that patients are going through their program successfully and actually finishing, so that we can be a support that way. The Sickle Cell 5K walk, that is coming back up under Scott. We'll have next year. We just did our first blood drive. We were able to save over 40 lives. So that minority blood donation is very important. We are experiencing a very huge shortage in blood donations. I know people are still not trusting because of the Tuskegee experiment, but eventually not gonna have any blood. So who's gonna be saved then? So I say that to encourage you to consider donating blood. One blood donation saves 3 lives. So that goes very far, just to kind of put that in your head. And then also me providing professional trainings to medical staffs, whether it's in social work, school, wherever. I'm just trying to ensure that I am spreading that knowledge and that individuals really understand the importance of sickle cell. So how you can get involved, you can reach out to local sickle cell organizations. And if you're not sure, well, you know there's one, but if you're watching this and you're somewhere else, you can check out www.scdaa.org. There's a huge list. You can participate in World Sickle Cell Day, which is June 19th. You can participate in any activities that are going on in September. Join the Sickle Cell Walk or Run, donate to the American Red Cross, the blood, and then just spreading awareness on what you've learned today could potentially make someone want to know. So you can share this link once, so that people understand the misconceptions of sickle cell patients. So, how many? Okay. How many? Remember the answer was B. The breakdown of red blood cells is 10 to 20 days. Then is sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease the same? B, false. Ensuring access to water for sickle cell patients is extremely important. True. And then the first state that required newborn screening was New York in 1975. And regular red blood cells are donut shaped, C. African Americans are not the only ones to get sickle cell disease, so that is false. And to the purple hemoglobin is D. It carries oxygen throughout the body. And the how do shaped red blood cells and sickle cell disease affect their health? So it blocks the blocked blood vessels, cause extreme pain, severe anemia, organ damage. So E, all the above. And once again, in 2050, the number of people with sickle cell disease is expected to increase by 30% globally. Are there any questions, comments from anyone?
When you start to show symptoms, is there like a period that it starts building up to, that a person can feel it coming on, or does it start all at once?
So some, from what because I don't have sickle cell, so I don't want to speak. But from what I've heard and what I've seen in my own child, is usually you can tell when there's an onset. So like increase in activity, they start to feel fatigue, the eyes become jaundiced, or there's back pain or belly pain, like they're, primarily for my son, usually starts in his back and then his belly and then over. But it's been a while. We're going on year 5 now, so I'm blessed that my boys have not been hospitalized in the last 5 years. So we're gonna keep our fingers crossed. Keep our fingers crossed on that.
There is a comment in the from Patty. She had to leave, and she says it was really good, LaShade. You are doing a great work. Praying that God continues to bless you, your family, and your efforts. And that was
Thank
Patty.
you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that you had mentioned about some of the things that they would see that way made just think like when you talked about the jaundice and the fact that, you know, a lot of times you see jaundice with people with hepatitis or alcohol use and stuff like that. And I didn't know, nobody answered the question, but I didn't know some people may not know that when your red blood cells break down, the jaundice is caused because of the now I lost my train of thought. Belly movement. And so that's yellow. That's what causes that color there. And so by them breaking down so fast, that's why they have so much more than someone who else, you know, that has another disease. And so that was something, you know, and I am a nurse, so that was something I learned about the jaundice. I didn't even think about it, but when you say that and looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That does make sense that they would see, you know, see that. Because they're breaking them down so fast.
Yeah.
We also have an evaluation form that's in the chat that you would you please make sure that you guys fill out too. Also, those of you who are on. There's no other
So if you're
nothing else in the chat.
Okay. Does
so
anybody else have
I
any
wanted
questions?
to provide some reference. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, would you make sure that we get your information about your walk way in advance so that we'll be able to support that effort next year? You said you want to. I remember when they used to have the sickle cell walk before, and our organization used to walk years and years ago when they had it. So would you make sure that we get that so that we can be in spearheading in with you to help in that area?
Yes, ma'am. I will send that out. I wanted to give some references or resources so you can utilize. I want to make sure we are using trusted sites. Do not Google. You can go to scdaa.org. You can go to www.cdc.gov/sickle cell, or you can check out ohio.gov/sickle cell to see what new research is out there. I really don't like to Google, but that could be the doctoral student me. I don't like Google. But if you want to contact me, here's my contact information. You can screenshot it. Our website is www.scottcenteroh.org, and the email is the same. It's just lscott@scottcenter.oh.org. And we have all our social media, so Scott Center OH, or you can type in Scott Center for Observation, Treatment, and Transition. But this is how you can reach me. If you need anything, I'll be willing to assist in any way that I can.
This has been a wonderful program, and every year when we celebrate bringing awareness to the community with LaShade, there's always new things that we learn and didn't know. So it's so important that we get it out there, because as I can see each year, there's never enough information, enough knowledge that we have on this, and it's always helpful in case we have a family member or a friend who has sickle cell. And if we could spread the word and look for the symptoms, if we see somebody who might have them, maybe we could suggest a special test too as well. But LaShade, you have been doing such a wonderful job, and we appreciate having you come back, even next year. So this month is Sickle Cell Month, and we want to make sure everybody actually does share this video or the information and contact LaShade, because she is so well-rounded and has so much information to share. As we stated earlier, the organizations are working hard to keep the Toledo community and the surrounding areas informed about these important issues. And we'd like to thank everyone who took time to be part of this program, as well as our voter registration program that we just had, and also to support us in upcoming events that we have, like in October. We will be celebrating, bringing awareness, I should say, for Triple the Pink, which is for triple negative breast cancer. So we'll learn some things about that, as well as domestic violence. And also, we will now have closing remarks from any of the members on this call, in case they have anything additional that they would like to say.
Just thank you so much for your time and everyone else who came on. We appreciate you showing up.
Anyone else? Well, it is now 8:10 and we've done a wonderful job and got a lot of information. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. And thank you again for coming. And thank you again, LaSharday